If you have an interest in horses and love learning more about horses, the horse industry, teaching, or even managing your own horse business, then you're in the right place. We would love you to join us on our mission, which is to improve the lives of horses around the world through the education of riders, handlers, and trainers. So get comfortable, listen in, and enjoy.
Our chat today is with Michelle O'Neill. Now, Michelle's been on a few times before. I think this is about chat number 4 for her. But before we get going with Michelle, who's going to talk to us about how groundwork is going to help with ridden work, which, I just think the more people understand about groundwork, the more they would absolutely agree. And if you don't agree, then have a listen, because Michelle's got a stack of really good points here. But before I do that, I just want to talk to you about the mission of International Horse College. The mission is to improve the welfare of horses around the world through the safe education of riders, handlers and trainers. Have a look now at the wide variety of equine courses at internationalhorsecollege.com, registered training organisation 31352. Now, I'll talk to Michelle. Michelle, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Yourself?
Oh, look, really well. And great to have you back. You've been through a few problems. You've had bushfires first and now COVID. But tell us about the bushfires.
It was a little bit interesting for a while. We ended up, we lost 40% of the place. And but, we were so lucky in that we lost no major infrastructure and only a few animals. So we were pretty lucky, and we were kind of glad. I've never been so glad to see a drought, because when the fires came through where the stock were pretty safe, because there was no grass for it to burn.
Okay. Now, Michelle, how many acres are you on?
We've got 2,500 acres.
Yep. So losing 40% of that's a big chunk, Yeah.
Yeah, we've got about 13 kilometres of fencing to replace.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you're in Australia when you start talking about kilometres of fencing rather than metres of fencing. Yeah, certainly.
Yes, well, even I had to envisage it the other day. I had to think, well, it's 13 kilometres from this place to a town. That was how I could actually get in my head how far we had to fence.
Yep. All right, now today we're going to talk about groundwork and how it's going to help with the ridden work. Okay, now tell us why you've chosen this subject.
In my clinics, Glenys, I see a lot of people who come and they're having a lot of problems with their horses, and quite often their problems are on the saddle or their problems with respect, and the riders get really stumped as to why they're having these problems, and quite often it goes back to the absolute basic interactions with the horses, which are on the ground.
Mm.
So groundwork is that really important thing that lays a foundation. And the other thing is you can use your imagination and get a lot done with groundwork in a really safe manner that will help you with your horse training.
Yep. Now, for people that just think groundwork's just, about going out and twirling your rope around, tell us a bit more.
Yeah, that is often a misconception that I come across.
It's sort of like, dressage is just circle work. No, there's a bit more to it than that, But yes,
exactly.
Tell us about rope twirling. Yep.
Yes, and that is just it. Whilst there was people who, did a lot with groundwork and introduced it to us early on, unfortunately that kind of left us with a set of little twirls. But what groundwork actually is, it's everything you do with your horse while your 2 feet are planted on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the simplest things like walking into the yard or the paddock to catch your horse. That's groundwork.
Yep.
If you walk into a yard and your horse turns his bum to you and sticks his head in the corner of the yard, that's not a horse that wants to work with you or is showing respect. So, the boundaries that we lay right at the start, there's the foundations that we use for the rest of that horse's career.
Mm-hmm.
If we can stick with those foundations and that basic training, that's going to help us all the way through our horse's career. And I'm always really amused by people. I was actually listening to an interview with my friend Dina Kirkpatrick from the States, and she was talking about people riding their horses from the arena back to the barn. And Dina's a barrel racer, and she's big on keeping shoulders elevated. And she was saying, it amuses her that people will ride in the arena and they'll work on shoulder control and keeping that horse's shoulder up and hip underneath them. And then they'll ride them out the gate back to the barn and they'll let the horse drop their shoulder and basically fall down in the front end.
Yes.
And it's the same. Like, does your horse know the difference between what is actual work and what is you just not paying attention to what you're doing? That's the difference. If we're with them, if we have a halter or a bridle or whatever on them, that is when we're working with them as far as the horse is concerned. So, how we can expect horses to behave one way when they're in an arena and behave a different way when they're in the yards or going on the float or anything like that, I don't quite understand. So we need to be really consistent with that training. And the absolute classic is anyone out there who has children. And, one day you can't say to your child, okay, you can't have lollies before dinner, and the next day let your child have lollies before dinner, and then the third day say you can't have lollies.
Yep.
Like, the child pretty soon works out that you're not actually being a leader, and you're not, laying the ground rules and following through with them, and pretty soon you have some issues. Float loading. Float loading is probably the most important groundwork most people do with their horse, and yet how many people have trouble with their float loading?
Yep. Yep, absolutely. Now, I know that people are going to say it takes so much time, I've only got a certain amount of time, but tell us about how better groundwork will mean less time on the ground.
Time is that thing, isn't it? Everybody is short on time, except maybe some people at the moment. But if we can do things well on the ground, that's going to make everything much easier for us. So if you do groundwork correctly, if you work really consistently with your horse, and if you turn up, that's a term we're hearing a lot more with horse training these days, when you don't just show up to the arena, you actually turn up mentally and physically. If you can do that, then you're going to build a better relationship with your horse. It's a lot about building that connection. And I think most horse people understand that, if you may have one particular horse that you have a very strong connection with, or you may have just one horse, and you're very connected with that horse. That's a connection that you can build up over time. And if you have a horse that you're lacking that connection with, or you're getting a new horse, or just want to improve the connection you have, groundwork can that really, really, happen for you.
Mm-hmm.
You're developing your feel. You're increasing the trust between you and the horse, because you are working on exposing your horse to things that are possibly a little scary to the horse to start with. And by doing that, you can actually work on improving your feel for how your horse is going to react. And therefore, when you let your horse know that all of that is okay, that helps you build more trust with your horse. The horse realises that you are actually there for his best interest. One of my big things about, groundwork is it so enables you to prepare for the unexpected. We talk about trail riding a lot, and obviously here, we're out in the trail quite a lot. And there's so many things out there that can happen that you can't control. Like, for example, we're out today and a wombat ran across in front of us. If I know that my horse will check in before he leaves, if I know my horse will give me that moment where he goes, I'm really scared and I don't know what to do, then that enables me to have the time to deal with that. Well, I build that ability in my horses on the ground, because I expose them to stuff that they're a little concerned about. And therefore, I'm less likely, when something goes wrong, I'm less likely to actually hit the ground when they're under saddle, because I actually have that connection with my horse. Okay. I am no bronc rider, and if anyone has listened to the first interview that I did with you, Glenys, I think I was pretty honest about, my history in the horse industry. And I breed horses that are bred to to run and to work. And so, they're a little spooky and they're a little hot sometimes. They're amazing horses, but I can punch above my weight. I can actually ride horses that if you turned up at my place and said, here, get on this horse, I'd look at some of those horses and go, oh, I don't think I really want to get on that. But if I've groundworked those horses and I've built that relationship and that trust with those horses, I can get on those horses and I know I'm going to be safe. Mm-hmm. I'm the last one who wants to be dusting my pants off after I've been thrown in the dirt. And I think groundwork really helps me to avoid that problem.
Yep. And I think that's, for people that do understand the benefits of groundwork, once you understand the benefits, you go, oh, right, who needs to ride buck jumpers? Yeah. I was just going to say, right. Michelle, you're so Australian. I thought you were going to say as an example, kangaroo went across the trail, but a wombat, Yep, we know what a wombat and how spooky they can be. Yep. Anyway.
And some horses really don't like the smell of wombat. I've learned over the years.
Yep, for sure. Now, thinking about time again, and I know that I've found this, but tell us if you think if better groundwork makes it easier under the saddle.
No, I believe it does, Glenys. I really do. I believe there's so many things that you can teach your horse on the ground that then when you go to teach them under saddle, the horse has a basic understanding. And you know what? I don't think that's anything new. I think that's been going on for centuries with the masters and all the rest. I think it's just now that we have this, and it was obviously done very differently to the way I do it. But, there is so many things we can teach them. And the absolute basic is flexion. Horses giving to pressure. When I ride my horses, if I pick up on a rein, I want them to flex. If I pick up on a rein, I want them to turn. I want them to give to that pressure. And I can do all of that on the ground before I ever put a saddle on the back. And I actually have a couple of young horses that I have to start ground working in preparation to be ridden for the first time the next week. And I can, they're 3-year-olds, and by the time, they already, even now as 3-year-olds, they already know how to give to pressure. They already know all the voice commands. They know how to move their body parts. Essentially all I need to do is get them in, remind them, and put the saddle on them. And because I've desensitized them to so many things, the saddle isn't even that scary a thing. They're quite happy to take that. And, I'm in my industry, and I know this isn't the case for every event, but in my industry, I can use voice commands on my horses. The voice cues that I use on horses, they're taught before they ever see a saddle. So when you get on and the first time you ask them to trot off, if you cluck, they know that means trot. Yep. So there's no kicking and gassing and flogging them with reins and carrying on. You just cluck and squeeze and off they go because they already understand that. My big thing, and I know, lots of people are looking for this, is every step in my training, the reason why I do it is because I'm trying to eliminate surprises later on in the program. If I can teach all this stuff in a really low-stress environment on the ground, that makes it just so much easier when I'm riding them.
Yeah. Now, what about people that, that say, oh, no, groundwork, that's just boring, I want to get on and ride. But what would you say, you don't want the horse to be bored, but what would you say to people that think that it's a bit boring? What can you do then to make the training more interesting?
Definitely. You can do a lot to make training more interesting. And something I probably should have said at the start, Glenys, is for me, groundwork is about making sure that I can then ride my horses. I'm not a believer in groundworking your horses for 6 years and never getting on them. Sure. But the groundwork that I do, I try to make it interesting for both myself and the horse. As horse trainers, and I believe every single person who owns or rides a horse is a horse trainer. Because we all have a responsibility to that horse's education. As horse trainers, we all want to have tools in our toolbox. And you might get those from watching online videos or going to clinics or reading books or listening to podcasts. we put all these tools in our toolbox, and we want to be able to draw them out, on occasions. And every single person, I believe, at some stage in their career probably hits a bit of a rut, or they come across a horse maybe that just doesn't fit the mould that they're used to. And you know what? You may just need to go and step back and look at things from a different perspective. And you know what? Groundwork could be that tool to do that. And, if you, say you, at the moment, everyone's locked down, and so you can't, float your horse out to a trail somewhere and go for a ride, and you're just a bit bored of doing you're doing your exercise on the arena, don't ride your horse wonder. Put out some things and use your imagination and make the groundwork more interesting. I know you've spoken to Ian Francis, and one of Ian's sayings is a rider's greatest tool is their imagination, and that is so true. In my arena at the moment, I've I put up some barrels about a metre and a half off a fence. And I was groundworking my little 3-year-old mare, and I was groundworking on one side of the barrel, on the other side of the barrel, and sort of squeezing her through the fence, and then I've got a bank on some arena. I'll work them up over the bank, and so I'm still doing all the changes of direction and the lunging and all that sort of stuff, but I'm doing it somewhere different because at the end of the day, I'm going to ride these horses all over the country when they're up and going. Why not make it a bit different and have a bit of fun with them at home? And a little 3-year-old Kelly, I was lunging him up the bank, and he was just looking at me going, it's just quite a steep bank. And then I'd stop him up on the top, and then I'd stop him on the bottom. I might stop him halfway down the bank. And I was actually testing how good my training was with him. And we were both I was probably having more fun than he was, to be honest.
I'm sure he was having fun too.
That's it. He was like, "Oh, I've got this hard work." I just used my imagination and went and had a bit of fun. It was a day where the weather was really bad, one particular day, and I just did that instead. And that horse was quite happy in his work. He looked like he was having fun, and he learnt something as a result of that. So, that's all you can do.
Yeah. And I'm thinking too, groundwork, sometimes it's just not possible to ride. I suppose it's a good alternative, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. It's like I was saying, the weather, up here where we live, you can get windy days, it can be snowing, maybe it's just a day where, you get home late from work and you really want to ride your horse and you just, like, it's getting dark, when it's not daylight saving. And the other thing too is there are some days when mentally we just shouldn't ride. There are some days when, we are tired and stressed, and it would be much better if we just did not put our horse under extra pressure by actually getting on his back. And there's probably, a few people feeling like that recently, with being locked down with COVID and stuff, they've been feeling overwhelmed. I've got a 6-year-old son, and he's been home with me a fair bit, obviously, with schools being shut down and stuff. And, there's been days where, I couldn't ride these 2 3-year-olds that I need to get rode. So I just set up stuff and I groundwork them. And, I'm still working on their training. I'm working on their responsiveness. I'm working on my relationship with those horses. I'm working on their flexion, so all the things that I need them to be under the saddle, I'm doing that without ever putting a leg over their back.
Yeah, there's other times, when my kids were young, just not being able to ride, and that's just been invaluable, just a bit of groundwork, but, I was probably doing a bit more lunging and that at that stage. Yeah, really good.
Yeah, do so much.
Making sure that both of you, because you said, maybe I was having more fun than the horse, but I suppose it makes sure that you're both paying attention, because the horse is not going to go out and do it by himself. You've got to be focused on what you're doing, and then the horse got to be focused on what they're doing.
That is exactly right. And it's that I have a little mare here that she gets very distracted, very, very distracted actually, and she's a 5-year-old now, and she would just, you'd go to ride, and she'd be looking down the paddock, and she'd be looking at this, and she'd be, and the easiest way to make sure that you were going to have a good session with that mare would be the ground worker. Would be to put 5 minutes in her at the start and just, move her back end, move her front end, lunge her around, and that little mare, she would come back and she would pay attention and she'd be fantastic. And, and that's, making sure your horse is dialed in. And it's a bit like I touched on before, it's quite easy for us to be aware when the horse is distracted, but we need to be aware where we're at too. And I don't think sometimes people consider enough. If they have a day where they go to do groundwork, if they have a day where they go to ride, and they go to ride, and maybe they're not feeling 100%, or maybe the horse isn't quite switched on, so then they go and do some groundwork, and they still can't get it all together. They might have had a really bad day at work. They might have blew with their boss, or the kids might be driving them mad, or whatever, and they never actually are 100% switched on. It's a really good day to maybe just do a bit more groundwork and end on a slightly better note than where you started and forget about it.
Yep.
Don't be hell-bent on actually getting on that horse, because there's every possibility if the horse isn't 100% dialed in, or you're not 100% dialed in, or you're both distracted, that training session is not going to go well. So I like to check in with my horses before I start the training session, and I'm observing. When my 2 3-year-olds that I groundwork just for a few minutes before I get on them every time at the moment, I'm observing them, from the whole time, and I'm observing them from the instant I walk in the yards.
Yep.
One day, they might not face me, and I'm like, what's wrong with you? And my little mare that I'm riding at the moment, she's a little bit hormonal at the moment, and she's on and off, and so every time I go and catch her, I'm already watching her. So by the time I actually get on that mare, I'm actually already starting to evaluate what exercises are going to benefit her that day. Mm-hmm. And it's made my training of her a lot easier because she and I are both prepared before we start.
Yep. For people that say, look, I want to ride because that's going to increase the softness and responsiveness, what would you say to that?
Yes, riding correctly will do that, but you can do that on the ground, and it's a lot of what I've been talking about with my young horses. One of the biggest things at my clinics is when I'm teaching people how to lunge their horses on the ground, when they're on the ground, I like to hold my lunge rope the same way I would hold my rein, because I feel when the rope runs through my fingers like a rein would, I'm already developing my timing and feel. I'm making improvements in my own ability just by, if I can practice it on the ground. And that horse, when a horse goes to pull on the rope, Glenys, when you're lunging them, and how if you would know, you can actually feel that rope start to move before they actually pull their head away.
Yes.
If you can do that on the ground, how awesome is that when you're if you can do that then under saddle? So and what I like about being on the ground is it enables you to focus on little things. And I was ground working these 2 young horses today, and I was just watching, how my mare, when I stopped and asked her to change direction, where her hind legs were stopping, and she's a mare who's got a fairly big stop, so she gets right up under herself. And as a trainer and someone who loves horses and enjoys watching horses and learning about horses, I like all that stuff because I think that makes me a better trainer.
Yep.
Yeah. And people have different equipment that they use when they're ground working their horses, and I use a horsemanship stick when I'm lunging my horse on the ground.
Just explain that a little bit, for people that don't know.
Yeah, sure. Basically, it's slightly heavier than a dressage, similar length, but slightly heavier than a dressage whip. So it's a sort of it looks a little bit like more golf club thickness, I guess. And what that does, if you lunge your horse and you put that stick up, you can actually use it to move your horse's body parts around. You can use it when they're standing still as well, of course. But if I'm lunging a horse and I have that stick up, I can actually get that stick to replicate what my inside leg would do by pointing that stick towards where my inside leg would hang. I can ask my horse to bend. Now, for people who are learning about how to ride and learning about flexion and things like that, if you can actually see that on the ground and watch how your horse flexes, then get on and try and ride a circle and feel for what the horse is doing. I think it increases your education and your learning because you're watching it, then you're feeling it, and you can go back and watch it again if you like. Mm-hmm. But, it's little things like that, just increasing your horse's softness. If I put my stick up and ask my horse's rib cage to move away, well, then when I sit on my horse and put my inside leg on, I can bend his rib cage around my inside leg on a circle. Fantastic. It's one of the basic things I ask my horse to do.
Just, sometimes horses push our boundaries. What happens if, how can groundwork help us if we feel like, there's something scary going on? Like we get more worried than the horse. So what can we do there? Yeah.
That's it. I think anyone who's ever ridden a cross-country course or a show jumping course will, half the elements that are put in there, they're not there to scare the horse. They're there to scare the rider. So this is the thing, on the ground, why not expose your horse to scary objects, tarps, plastic bags, whatever it may. If you can expose your horse to those objects on the ground, and by exposing, I don't just mean like wave it in their face and terrify the poor animal to death. I mean gently, desensitizing the horse to these sorts of things and getting him used to them. And then that's going to, again, you're building your confidence. But then when you're actually under saddle, and I've had this happen, and I'm sure you have too, I've been at a competition and a plastic bag has blown through the warm-up arena.
Yep.
Yeah. If you ever come to an event and you see that, you can pretty soon tell which horses are quiet and which ones aren't. And my horses will go, oh, yeah, okay, I've seen that 1,000 times. That means nothing. And there's a lot of people have gotten quite into challenges, and a lot of those challenges are about exposing their horses, or the ones down south here, they're about exposing your horses to scary objects, things like getting your horse to ride over a mattress and stuff like that. If you can expose your horse to all of that on the ground, it's safer for you, it's safer for the horse. Again, I believe it improves your horsemanship because you learn to watch how your horse reacts to these things. And the more you can expose your horse to stuff and not scare your horse beyond the point of no return, the more that horse will respect you as a leader, and the more the horse is going to want to work with you. So again, it's about gaining that trust and respect. Now, of course, as I said before, when talking about this, it's really important to remember that we can't just, find something scary and expect our horse just to walk up to it and, really force them to do it. There is a way and a technique and a time and a place to do all these things. But, and I was talking before about that example about, working my mare around the barrels and the fence and things. She's a mare that doesn't particularly like confined spaces. Well, she's now at the point where she doesn't bat an eyelid about going between the barrels and the fence because she's done on the ground so many times. Now, at some point in her competition career, I'm probably going to have to ride her somewhere through a 3-foot gate. I know now I can do that, and she's not going to worry about it because we've done all this stuff at home and done it on the ground, and she's happy with it.
Now, we talked about, off groundwork, it takes so much time and to do that first, then you've still got to put the time in riding. But does groundwork, if you think about training horse, particularly a young horse, does groundwork save time?
No, I honestly believe effective groundwork can make your ridden time so much more effective.
And I like the way you said effective there. So if the people are thinking that it doesn't save time, maybe they're just looking at effective groundwork.
And I would agree with that, Glenys, and I would say that probably the greatest problem with groundwork I see at my clinic. So yes, people, they go, oh yes, I know groundwork and I can do all this with my horse, but they're not actually doing it in an effective manner. And essentially all they're doing is they're a bit like the botfly swinging around their horse's legs. They're just tormenting it. So I really think if anyone who sort of goes, oh, I've tried that groundwork thing and it didn't work for me, well, chances are it's probably because you didn't do it properly. And I mean that really nicely and with all due respect. But, yeah, it has to be done effectively. And I had a big horse here a couple of years ago, and it's a lovely horse, but not the easiest horse I've ever had to train, actually the hardest horse I've ever had to train. He taught me a hell of a lot. And early in his career, if I didn't spend 5 or 10 minutes groundwork in before I got on, and whether that was backing up, whether it was getting a flex, whether it was disengaging his hindquarters, whether that was getting around on lunge, whatever, if I didn't spend 5 or 10 minutes doing that, I knew it was going to take me an extra 45 minutes in the ridden session to get his attention.
Yeah, okay.
And, if you're like me, and at that stage, I probably had 4, 5, 6 horses to ride, that's time that I could be very well spending doing something else. So, and it doesn't matter if you've only got one horse to ride. I'd rather spend 10 minutes of effective time with my horse groundworking him than spend 45 minutes on his back, pulling on his face and feeling like I'm getting nowhere, because both you and the horse end up disheartened and disconnected. And so, you can save yourself so much time and effort, for that matter, by just spending that short amount of time on the ground to start with. And like I said, like at the start, remembering that, like I talk about groundwork as in when I'm actually training the horse. However, this whole thing starts from when you walk into the yard or the paddock to catch that horse.
Yes. I think that's how you start it,
Yeah. When they're at tightrope, tie 4 horses at a time to my tightrope, and they all stand at right angles to the tightrope.
Yep.
It's just a respect thing. They stand. If one of them starts spinning, because they're reasonably close. So if one of them starts spinning around, that upsets everybody else. So we work on, if they spin their hindquarters off meant to be, I just take them back over. The horses that have been with me for a while, they all stand there. And then that equates to, they do the same when I tie them to the truck when they go away.
Mm.
They're happy to stand there with their face to the truck all day, because they know that that's easier. They know that if they start swinging their back ends around, I'm going to make them work. That, again, is just basic groundwork.
Yeah. Okay, now, we all want a better relationship with our horse. All of us. That's why we get started. That's how, that's how we get in this industry. We want that relationship. How can groundwork do that?
Yeah. And I think you and I have been alluding to this the whole way through. If I could groundwork Warren, my partner, like I can groundwork my horses, I'd have a much better relationship going on here. He's not in earshot, I can say that.
He might listen to this, though.
I'll be in trouble. But, this is the thing, this is how we build that relationship. For me, I breed my horses, so it's years of commitment to get a horse to actually make it to the competition arena. For anyone who goes out and buys a horse, it's a lot of time and money, particularly money, that is invested in this animal. When you get them, or whether you buy them or you breed them or you're given them, whatever, we want to have these animals in our life as a positive experience. Nobody goes out and buys the worst horse that they can find, the most untrained horse they can try, and never tries to fix that, I believe. Mm-hmm. I believe everybody tries to improve their horse's education in some way.
Yep.
And it's just to the best of people's ability and knowledge. So, if groundwork helps us do that, well, that's fantastic. And this is just, like you said, it's the reason why we are involved with horses, is it's the relationship. We don't get involved with horses to throw all our money down the drain and get up at daylight every day and get cold and wet. We get involved with horses because we love the horse. So if we love the horse that much, it's really important that we try and build that relationship. And I know for me, and I think I told the story on the first interview I did with you, Glenys, about the first ever horsemanship clinic I turned up to had a groundwork component. I didn't even know what groundwork was. I turned up with a flat halter and a 4-foot lift.
Yep.
And poor Rob Lawson has nearly died of a heart attack. But, so I wouldn't be able to do what I am doing now without having these groundwork skills behind me, And I think, just being able to spend that time observing my horses, watching their facial reactions and watching how they change and how they react to things, I think that's helped me as a horse trainer because I think I have a better understanding of the horse. And it's very hard to do that sort of thing when you're on their back and, you're focusing on where you're sitting and where your hands are. And the big example I use is horses licking and chewing. I can hear a horse licking and chewing. Like I can be sitting on them, or I can be at a clinic and I can have someone working their horse 15 metres away from me out of my line of sight and they might stop and I'll hear that horse licking and chewing. That's something I learned by working with horses on the ground. And for anyone who doesn't know, like licking and chewing is one of your signs of release and it's a really important tool in your horse training. So if I can learn all this stuff without being on their back and swinging on their mouth and making them uncomfortable, that has got to build a better relationship with my horse because my horse is going to go, oh, you know what, she actually she's working with me. I want to work with my horses. I want to be their leader and I want them to have confidence and belief in me. I don't want to domineer them, but I want them to want to work with me. And I think I've learned how to watch those horses react to some of the stuff I do a lot more by just watching them on the ground rather than just being focused on than riding them all the time. Yes, there's a place to ride them, and yes, you can use all this stuff in your riding program. But if I could go back in my life and redo part of my horsemanship journey, I would honestly wish that as a child, as kids today can, I wish that as a child I could have learnt groundwork.
Yep.
Because I would be, 15 years ahead in my horsemanship journey because I would have already learnt all that sort of stuff before I became serious about competition.
Yes, the whole confidence thing, it does. People don't want to ride their horse. They want to be there and they want to love it and care for it and everything else, but they don't want to get on. But rather than just taking it out of the paddock and just leading it around, if they learn to do the groundwork, it can certainly help them and just build a relationship so that one day they can ride. You sort of go back over everything you've talked about. And I think it's just the best thing. For people that don't want to ride, or they've got a horse that's tricky to ride, and you can get them that tricky. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that thing of even, if you've done all the groundwork with your horse, and you need to get him on a flight, well, getting him on a flight's a lot easier. Loading horses here on floats and trucks for the first time is never a problem because their groundwork is so well established. If I didn't have that relationship with my horses on the ground already, we could have a problem with all of that. But, that's, and then exactly like you say, people want to spend time with their horses and love them and stuff. And but you need to make sure that it's done in a way that, there's a boundary there so that when you ask your horse to do something, he's not surprised or upset by that. It's not a sudden shock to the system of, oh, my gosh, this person is actually going to ask me to do something.
Yeah. Yeah, so not just about people building confidence, about horses building confidence in other people.
Definitely, yes, I believe so.
Michelle, this has been wonderful. I think that you've convinced a few listeners to put some groundwork in, to give it a go. There's so many different exercises you can do. Maybe you can come back and talk to us a bit more about the types of exercises that people could be doing with their groundwork.
Yeah, no, that'd be fantastic. I'll think of 10 very important groundwork exercises.
I'm sure you could think of a million, talking about Ian Francis and the rider's imagination. Yeah, I'm sure you could think of heaps.
Definitely.
Yeah. I'm just thinking he was on a couple of weeks ago, so if anyone you've got to listen to his podcast, just go on horsechats.com, search for Ian. And if you'd like to listen to Michelle's previous podcast, go back, search for Michelle or search for O'Neill, and you'll find those podcasts. But Michelle, if people would like to contact you now, what's the best way?
So we have a new website up actually, Glenys.
Oh wow! For Cherry Tree, is it? Is it still Cherry Tree?
Yep. So cherrytreeequine.com.au.
Yep. So it's still the same website name.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Oh wow.
Still everything.
Yep.
So, and there is heaps of links on there to some demonstrations that I've done with below groundwork and Ridden below groundwork, and I've been putting up some new groundwork videos. So so that's all there, and of course we're on Facebook, and you can always drop me a line, through either Facebook or the website. So, yeah.
All right, looks good. I'm just looking at your website now. You've got some lovely photos there. Yeah, really nice photos.
Thank you.
All right, look, that's great. Hopefully we'll talk to you very soon and get those exercises up so people won't be waiting too long, or else they can go to your website. So thank you, Michelle. I will hopefully we'll chat to you very soon, and thanks for your time today.
Thanks for having me, Glenys.
If you've enjoyed this chat, then please comment, rate and subscribe. If you'd like any changes or recommendations for guests, then please contact us through horsechats.com. And while you're online, have a look at the government-accredited courses at internationalhorsecollege.com. Registered Training Organisation 31352.
Remember that our comments and instructions are general in nature and do not take into consideration your individual horses or your individual ability and circumstances. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please leave your comment below.